change or AI? How do we get people to stop putting the immediate need to use this?
To give them the certainty of we're all screwed.
Sounds like an emergency.
Yes, sir. Your choice of the word, I just don't want to call it a panic. It is beyond an emergency. It's the biggest thing we need to do today. It's bigger than climate change, believe it or not. It's bigger. I mean, if you just assume the speed of worsening of events, okay? Yeah, the likelihood of something incredibly disruptive happening within the next 2 years that can affect the entire planet is definitely larger with AI than it is with climate change.
As an individual listening to this now, someone's going to be pushing their pram or driving up the motorway or, I don't know, on their way to work on the tube as they hear this, or just sat there in their bedroom with existential crisis panic.
I didn't want to give them that panic.
The problem is, when you talk about this information, regardless of your intention of what you want people to get, they will get something based on their own biases and their own feelings. Like, if I post something online right now about artificial intelligence, which I have repeatedly, you have one group of people that are energized and are like, okay, this is great. You have one group of people that are confused, and you have one group of people that are terrified.
Yeah.
And I can't avoid that. Like,
I agree.
Sharing information, even if it's by the way, there's a pandemic coming from China, some people will go, okay, action, some people will say paralysis, and some people will say panic. And it's the same in business. When bad things happen, you have the person that's screaming, you have the person that's paralyzed, and you have the person that's focused on how you get out of the room. So, it's not necessarily your intention, it's just what happens. And it's hard to avoid that.
So let's give specific categories of people specific tasks. Okay?
Okay.
If you are an investor or a businessman, invest in ethical good AI.
Okay.
Right? If you are a developer, write ethical code or leave.
Okay, so I want to bypass some potential wishful thinking here. For an investor whose job, by very way of being an investor, is to make returns, to invest in ethical AI, they have to believe that it's more profitable.
It is.
Than unethical AI, whatever that might mean.
It is. I mean, there are 3 ways of making money. You can invest in something small, you can invest in something big and is disruptive, and you can invest in something big and disruptive that's good for people. At Google, we used to call it the toothbrush test. Okay? The reason why Google became the biggest company in the world is because search was solving a very real problem. Okay? And, Larry Page, again, our CEO, would constantly remind me personally and everyone, that if you can find a way to solve a real problem effectively enough so that 1 billion people or more would want to use it twice a day, you're bound to make a lot of money, much more money than if you were to build the next photo sharing app.
Okay, so that's investors, business people. What about other people?
As I said, if you're a developer, honestly, do what we're all doing. So whether it's Jeffrey or myself or everyone, if you're part of that theme, choose to be ethical. Think of your loved ones, work on an ethical AI. If you're working on an AI that you believe is not ethical, please leave.
Jeffrey, tell me about Jeffrey.
I can't talk on his behalf, but he's out there saying there are existential threats.
Who is he?
He was a very prominent figure at the scene of AI, a very senior level, AI scientist in Google, and recently he left because he said, I feel that there is an existential threat, and if you hear his interviews, he basically says, more and more we realize that, and we're now at the point where it's certain that there will be existential threats, right? So I would ask everyone, if you're an AI, if you're a skilled AI developer, you will not run out of a job. So you might as well choose a job that makes the world a better place.
What about the individual?
Yeah, the individual is what matters. Can I also talk about government? Okay? Government needs to act now. Now, honestly, now, like we are late. Okay? Government needs to find a clever way. The open letter would not work. To stop AI would not work. AI needs to become expensive. Okay, so that we continue to develop it, we pour money on it and we grow it, but we collect enough revenue to remedy the impact of AI.
But the issue with one government making it expensive, so say the UK make AI really expensive, is we as a country will then lose the economic upside as a country, and the US and Silicon Valley will once again eat all the lunch. We'll just slow our country down.
What's the alternative? The alternative is that you don't have the funds that you need to deal with AI as it becomes, as it affects people's lives and people start to lose jobs and people, you need to have a universal basic income much closer than people think. It's just like we had with furlough in COVID. I expect that there will be furlough with AI within the next year.
But what happens when you make it expensive here is all the developers move to where it's cheap. That's happened in Web3 as well. Everyone's gone to Dubai.
No, expensive. By expensive, I mean when companies make soap and they sell it and they're taxed at say 17%. If they make AI and they sell it, they're taxed at 70, 80. Right?
So I'll go to Dubai then and build AI.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Did I ever say we have an answer to this? I will have to say, however, in a very interesting way, the countries that will not do this will eventually end up in a place where they are out of resources because the funds and the success went to the business, not to the people.
It's kind of like technology broadly. It's kind of like what's kind of happening in Silicon Valley. There'll be these centers which are like tax efficient. Founders get good capital gains. Great.
So right. You're so right.
Portugal have said that I think there's no tax on crypto. Dubai said there's no tax on crypto. So loads of my friends have got on a plane and are building their crypto companies where there's no tax. And that's the selfishness and kind of greed we talked about.
It's the same prisoner's dilemma. It's the same first inevitable.
Is there anything else? The other thing about governments is they're always slow and useless at understanding a technology. If anyone's watched these sort of American Congress debates where they bring in like Mark Zuckerberg, and they like try and ask him what WhatsApp is, it becomes a meme.
Yeah.
They have no idea what they're talking about.
But I'm stupid and useless at understanding governance.
Yeah, 100%.
The world is so complex, okay, that definitely it's a question of trust once again. Someone needs to say, we have no idea what's happening here. A technologist needs to come and make a decision for us, not teach us to be technologists, right? Or at least inform us of what possible decisions are out there.
The legislation, I just always think.
I'm not a big fan either.
TikTok Congress meeting they did where they're asking them about TikTok and they really don't have a grasp of what TikTok is.
Yeah.
So they've clearly been handed some notes on it. These people aren't the ones who want legislating because again, unintended consequences. They might make a significant mistake. Someone on my podcast yesterday was talking about how GDPR was like very well intentioned, but when you think about the impact it has on like every bloody web page, you're just like clicking this annoying thing on there because I don't think they fully understood the implementation of the legislation.
Correct. But you know what's even worse? What's even worse is that even as you attempt to regulate something like AI, what is defined as AI? Okay,
Yeah.
so even if I say, okay, if you use AI in your company, you need to pay a little more tax.
I'll find a way.
Yeah, you'll simply call this not AI. You'll use something and call it advanced technological progress. ATP, right? And suddenly somehow it's not a young developer in their garage somewhere will not be taxed as such. Is it going to solve the problem? None of those is definitively going to solve the problem. I think what's interestingly this all comes down to, and remember we spoke about this once, that when I wrote Scary Smart, it was about how do we save the world, okay? And yes, I still ask individuals to behave positively as good parents for AI so that AI itself learns the right value set. I still stand by that. But I hosted on my podcast was a week ago, we haven't even published it yet, an incredible gentleman, a Canadian author and philosopher, Stephen Jerkinson. He worked 30 years with dying people. And he wrote a book called Die Wise, and I love his work. And I asked him about Die Wise, and he said it's not just someone dying. If you look at what's happening with climate change, for example, our world is dying. And I said, okay, so what is to die wise? And he said, what I first was shocked to hear, he said, hope is the wrong premise. If the world is dying, don't tell people it's not. Because in a very interesting way, you're depriving them from the right to live right now. And that was very eye-opening for me. In Buddhism, they teach you that you can be motivated by fear, but that hope is not the opposite of fear. As a matter of fact, hope can be as damaging as fear if it creates an expectation within you that life will show up somehow and correct what you're afraid of. Okay? If there is a high probability of a threat, you might as well accept that threat, okay, and say it is upon me, it is our reality, and as I said, as an individual, if you're in an industry that could be threatened by AI, learn, upskill yourself. If you're in a place, in a situation where AI can benefit you, be part of it. But the most interesting thing, I think, in my view, is, I don't know how to say this any other way. There is no more certainty that AI will threaten me than there is certainty that I will be hit by a car as I walk out of this place. Do you understand this? We think about the bigger threats as if they're upon us. But there is a threat all around you. I mean, in reality, the idea of life being interesting in terms of challenges and uncertainties and threats and so on is just a call to live. If you know, honestly, with all that's happening around us, I don't know how to say it any other way. I'd say if you don't have kids, maybe wait a couple of years, just so that we have a bit of certainty. But if you do have kids, go kiss them. Go live. I think living is a very interesting thing to do right now. Maybe, Stephen was basically saying, the other Stephen, on my podcast, he was saying, maybe we should fail a little more often. Maybe we should allow things to go wrong. Maybe we should just simply live, enjoy life as it is. Because today, none of what you and I spoke about here has happened yet, okay? What happens here is that you and I are here together and having a good cup of coffee, and I might as well enjoy that good cup of coffee. I know that sounds really weird. I'm not saying don't engage, but I'm also saying don't miss out on the opportunity just by being caught up in the future.
Kind of stands in opposition to the idea of like urgency and emergency, though, doesn't it?
Does it have to be one or the other? If I'm here with you trying to tell the whole world, wake up, does that mean I have to be grumpy and afraid all the time? Not really.
You said something really interesting there. You said if you have kids, if you don't have kids, maybe don't have kids right now.
I would definitely consider thinking about that, yeah.
Really? Yeah. You'd seriously consider not having kids?
I'd wait a couple of years.
Because of artificial intelligence?
No, it's bigger than artificial intelligence, Stephen. We all know that. I mean, there has never been such a perfect storm in the history of humanity. Economic, geopolitical, global warming, or climate change. The whole idea of artificial intelligence, and many more. This is a perfect storm. This is the depth of uncertainty. The depth of uncertainty. It's never been more, in a video gamer's term, it's never been more intense. This is it, okay? And when you put all of that together, if you really love your kids, would you want to expose them to all of this? A couple of years. Why not?
In the first conversation we had on this podcast, you talked about losing your son Ali and the circumstances around that, which moved so many people in such a profound way. It was the most shared podcast episode in the United Kingdom on Apple in the whole of 2022. Based on what you've just said, if you could bring Ali back into this world at this time,